Welcome to Roll Call, the #1 Birmingham Roller podcast, bringing together Birmingham Roller fans from all over the world.
Then we can make this roll forward. Can't hear you, Jerry. Okay, gotcha.
Recording in progress.
All right.
Okay.
All right, we're ready to go. I just had the intro going on right now, and so I just went ahead and put the record button just in case our live streaming shuts down or whatever. I got it in recording. I could post it later. But
Okay.
everybody, thank you for joining us today on the Roll Call podcast. Thank you, Ray, for being here.
Thank you, man. It's been a minute.
Yeah. So is Mr. Bruce Hall. Bruce, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, you guys.
All right.
Hey, Bruce, it's nice to meet you again, man. It's been like I just said, Jerry, it's been a minute. It's great to have you on the podcast.
All right, Bruce.
I appreciate it.
So Bruce is a flyer from many years ago back in California. That's where everything started for you in the hobby, correct, Bruce?
Yes, sir. About 8 years old, yeah.
Yeah, if you could just give us a little introduction of yourself and give us a little history of how you get started in this hobby.
Okay, well, my name is Bruce Hall, and I grew up in LA, South Central for a lot of people. And as far as the quest for the birds, it kind of began with my brother and I, my late brother, Rayvon Hall. And he was serious about it way earlier than I was, but we started collecting wild birds, and then little by little, we started hearing about the pet shops. And then, there's a few other mentors we met that I'll mention along the way, but we kind of started climbing up, the street advertising signs, getting birds out of there, getting birds anywhere we could until we started meeting more people that could kind of help us out with the birds, as far as getting birds that really were rollers.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And so you guys, you said he was more serious. Rayvon was a little more serious about it at the start than you were, but you guys always kind of hung together. And
oh yeah. He was, when I hear about these different venues or these speaker guys, I'm sorry, a lot of guys didn't get to really see him back when he in his heyday. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He was a very knowledgeable dude. He was he was one of those guys whose birds look great in the show pen, and they really rolled well. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he was doing some really big numbers before the multipliers were ever been put into effect. But sometimes it just happens. There's people that are great at this before their time. And it's like with any sport, you just have to accept the people who saw you at your best. But he never bought into the kick competition per se, in a sense of he just wanted a 2.0 roller every single time they went over. He didn't really care about frequency.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I was watching a video of him that's out there, like an interview, and this was a few years back, and he was talking about the kid competition and what his thoughts on that, and he was giving in his 2 cents on that, and talking about that the kid competition was on another level than what it was before, as far as looking for more of an individual superstar bird, and that he was getting active on that, and the good thing about it, he's like, I could expect the same losses and wins with it, but it's not about the win. It's just being how would you say, participating within the competition, you know. But it was pretty good video that was out there for him, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate all the exposure. You know, people got. I remember when you were in England, you shared that picture of George Mason
Oh
with
yeah,
my brother, and it brought a smile to my face, man. You know, because you know, just two awesome pigeon dudes meeting and didn't know each other, didn't know anything about each other. You know, and I think that's really what the conventions, man. They do a lot of that, and then just to be able to get a picture of those two guys together, you know, that was wonderful.
yeah. It surprised me when he told me, "Here, I want you to check this picture." I was like, "What? That's Rayvon Hall." He goes, "Yeah."
Yeah,
I just thought about you. I had to send it to you from when I was
yeah, I
overseas.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Put a big smile on my face.
Yeah. So share with us, you know, your experience, man, and getting started and witnessing, you know, these birds, what they could do, and you know, how did it start for you, man? Was it just a, you know, backyard thing with you and your brother? I mean, because you guys got very serious into it, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, for some reason, pigeons in South Central LA, Compton, Watts, all those, you know, Linwood, Carson, it was just huge with the, you know, the younger crowd. I'm sure some of the older guys had the birds as well. I wasn't privy to meet those guys until later. But yeah, so like I was saying, we started off catching wild birds, and then this is when we were on 105th off of Normandy, but we were really young at that point. And there were some guys across the street from us who had some really nice birds. You know, you've never really seen pigeons roll. You know, your memory is whatever they were doing was pretty good, you know. So that kind of led us into start seeking out some birds. We got a few birds from them. Uh, Someone, I don't even recall, someone had told us about Red Wing Pet Shop. And so we started making trips down to Red Wing, which is right there off of Alameda, Firestone. Yeah, so everybody from the hood used to be over there, right? And you start picking up birds from here or there. A lot of the guys that I know that are my lifetime friends right now, I didn't even know them when I was a child. But, you know, we were fortunate. My grandmother, my my maternal grandmother lived on Home Street, which is in the middle of Watts, and that was a mecca for people having birds. So we met Eddie Scott after he moved over there shortly, and then of course, and then my memories. I'll be 61 tomorrow, Jerry. So my memory's not as great as it used to be.
Oh,
But
happy
we started
birthday.
meeting all the Watts guys uh, and just checking out their birds. You know, we always had crawling cages, nothing super fancy, which most people did. But we go from loft to loft watching people's birds fly. There was a guy around the corner from us, Marvin Parks, actually. I don't know if you know who Marvin Parks is. His name, we call him Tippy. We always call him Tippy. And his mom was my mother's hairdresser for decades, you know. So he had birds, we had birds. Another guy around the corner on 109th. Well, this is once we moved to 118th. This guy was on 119th. He had even one of the best yellow birds I've seen up to this day. You know what I mean? Uh, we bought birds from hills that had Pacheco's Loft Band on it. We bought birds from, they had PRC bands on them. That's when bands were really, really, really what a bird was banded. It was huge. Triangle P, whoever that was, banding those birds. So that's kind of how we got started. And, you know, like I said, going from, you know, loft to loft in South Central, a lot of those guys' names I don't remember, but the Keith Londons and the Juan Navarros and the Frank Cortezes, the Victoria Gutierrez, those guys, I didn't meet those guys until I was well past adulthood. Actually, I hadn't met them until I got out of the service. So we'll touch on that a little bit later, but those are my lifelong friends. But I didn't know those guys when I was, you know, in the teens and 10, 11, 12. I knew nothing about them. Like I said, we had a bunch of guys in the neighborhood. And we walked to different places, ride our bikes, and just see people's birds and just compare notes, trade birds, you know, of course, everyone's traded everyone's birds back in those days. None of us South Central dudes had loft bands or anything like that. So I just feel like, you know, between seeing the birds early on and then, like I said, Eddie Scott came into the picture early because he lived right next door. He had moved well into the early mid 70s next door to my grandmother. And so we would get to come over there on the weekends. Only my grandfather by marriage would care for the birds. We come over there and, you know, Eddie was the first person I ever saw with the big fancy lofts. the individual breeding pens. I'd never seen anything like that. I mean, it was so neat, man. And so even to this day, I remember thinking, when I get some money and I can have my own home, I want to build a loft like that. Unfortunately, though, that hasn't happened yet. But my brother Rayvon was always on top of everything, man. He always had the nicest cages, the nicest lawn on the block. So that was kind of our introductory to getting birds. And then once became grown, we started meeting people like Sam Gutierrez, and my brother picked up some birds from him. I was in the military at the time. Of course, he had some birds from Eddie Scott. Like I said, we had a mixture of birds to keep our birds back there. And they were just kit birds. I don't remember now where we bred the birds, but we were able to keep our kit birds back there. And we just kind of grew more serious from there. Then started meeting, the initial guys from the ICRC, the guys who were the founding members of that. That would be Victoria Frank, Juan Navarro, Raul Medina. I think that was his name. He stayed in South. He flew some really nice pigeons. He actually was Frank Cortez's brother-in-law. And then, ICRC expanded many, many leaps. And we were able to pick up birds from people who were true breeders from those pet shops. And the style and speed on the bird was phenomenal. And that's what always hooked us to that. So we were very fortunate to see birds performing the right way from early on. And that sticks with you even till today, The kit competitions are great. My hat's off to everybody who does well in them, but I am a quality first kind of guy. Now, I'm trying to work my way back to find some kit competitions. We haven't had a region out here in probably about 12 years. So hopefully, maybe I'm serious enough to want to get picked up by somebody, and especially if I can help them with a few qualifiers, spots. But that's kind of the inception. And so that's where it all kind of began. I may be leaving something out, but the gist of it, I kind of included in there.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of guys out there, you mentioned Red Wings, and like, man, I remember riding my bicycle. I lived in Bell, and I used to ride my bike all the way to Red Wings. And, one time I picked up it was like a West of England one eye, and I didn't know nothing about, but it was like, this is a Birmingham roller, and I took it home, and the guys around the neighborhood like, man, that thing ain't no Birmingham roller. But yeah, I remember going over the Red Wings as a little kid. That was a landmark for a lot of pigeon guys back in the days.
Let me add something real quick. So as I got older, you asked me about different experiences. And we had cars, and all of us had jobs, so it was a little bit more difficult to keep up with a lot of the stuff that was going on the weekends. But we started getting affiliated with the guys in CPRC. We go on those flies sometimes. Saw some phenomenal kits. I have the utmost respect for what that club was and how they put out just top-notch flyers. I remember mentioning to somebody, I said, do you know how difficult it would be to have 3 or 4 guys in the same local club in the top 10? And, that thought kind of went over their head, but I was very impressed about how they were able to keep a number of guys in the top 10 in the world, And I know over recent decades, things have switched, but I'm not a person to take away anyone's past glory. If you've done it in the past, that's good enough for me. If you're doing it in the future, that's great. But, champions come and go. We have to kind of reinvent ourselves, especially with the dynamics, trying to fly pigeons now with all the problems we have with predators and whatnot. So your game you have to be a better breeder than ever now, because as far as I see things as you have to be able to breed birds, and 50% isn't good enough. You could toss all the birds in there on their own, let them mate up, and 50%, you have that odds right off the bat. We should be shooting for 65% good solid velocity, 10-footers or better. I'm not saying they all have to be stockable, but that 65% should be everyone's goal. And lock them up from their 4th month of life through their 9th month of life.
Yeah.
And anyone that keeps up with pigeons know most really super outstanding pigeons are going to come into the role somewhere in that time frame. The overwhelming majority of them that are really going to catch your eye are going to come into the role somewhere around there. Now, if you're breeding for later pigeons, then you are the exception. But I can't even tell you how many times I've seen it. at my loft and other people's loft. And then those birds have to be able to control that roll and then come back, 5 months later after they've been locked up for them premium months of losing air time and not develop on a perch. That's what I call it, develop it on a perch. And I mean, just a bird that's 5 foot when you lock it up. The second day you lock it up, the lockdown is 40 feet. Well, that happened on a perch as far as I'm concerned. Now, because you can't take away, you can never diminish when the bird was going to come into the roll. But once the roll hits them, it's over with. It doesn't matter when it is, whether it be 2 months or 2 years, they're going to start rolling. Mm-hmm. So I just think those kind of new challenges make it, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So my hat's off to any of the guys. I haven't been on social media in years, but any of the guys that finished in the top, top 10, top 20, my hat's off to them, because I'm gonna be honest with you, when it comes to pigeons, I'm stingy in this sense. I'd rather give a bird away donated than let the falcon eat it. I'm just selfish like that. And my philosophy just hasn't changed. I don't believe in breeding a ton of birds. I believe in breeding, like I said, aim for 65% good scoreable pigeons. That way, with whatever you have left over, and then you count what you breed the next year, you should be somewhere in the ballpark.
Yeah, that makes your breeding loft so much more important, a lot of guys don't realize that, and you're totally right. You sit a bird on the perch after about 4 months, birds change over time, not only may they not have come into the role completely yet, but they change over time. Some get deeper, some shorten up, some get a little unstable. I mean, there's so much in there, Bruce, was Rayvon your younger brother?
No. He was older brother. Yeah, he was the best older brother you could have, man. He did all the dirty work, Ray, so his younger brothers didn't have to.
Yeah.
He was a hellion early on, but they left us alone because of reputation he preceded us with,
Yeah.
So he was an awesome big brother.
So do you still go ahead, Gary? I'm sorry. What did you say?
Go ahead.
So do you still have some of those birds that he had? I mean, you guys have the same
No, we kind of ventured off differently. But here's the thing, full disclosure, things didn't go well after he passed away. And, I came down for the funeral, and I'm not a guy that's about hiding anything. Rayvon had birds that were there that didn't belong to him. And I was trying my best in that span in which I came down for the funeral, because I've been in New Mexico since 2006. So he passed away in 2018. And that didn't really go well with some of the people in charge of the birds, because they kind of thought people were trying to leech off of his stock. And like I told that person, I said, look, Rayvon was an exclusively left-handed person. So any bird in there that has one band on it and it's on the right leg, he didn't breed it. He was an exclusive lefty. He could do nothing with his right hand. And so it got kind of tense, because people had, loaned him some birds. He passed away. And it was up to me to try to get those birds back. And, to be honest with you, I'm strong enough to deal with it. I had people asking me about birds at his funeral, I mean, at his actual funeral, I was trying to do what I could, but I wasn't able to recover any of those birds. I heard they ended up naming with one guy. Don't know if that's how that really worked out or not. But I can tell you, I never got a bird from him out of the loft that he had. About 4 months ago, Dwayne White sent me a white bird that my brother had bred. He said he picked it out of my brother's kid. I haven't been able to get her to mate, let alone lay yet. So, but that's all in the past. I'm doing a lot better. My brother had some complications from diabetes, and he chose not to go into the extremes, but can always include amputations and stuff like that. So he died at 57, but he got a full life in. He got a full life in. I tell people this, because the South Central guys that knew him from always having nice houses and nice cars. This has nothing to do with pigeons, but this is how proud of my brother I was. My brother graduated high school in 1979, Washington School, right there on 108th in Normandy. on a Thursday. This was in '79. He started working for the city of Compton that following Monday. My brother was the only grown man I know to this day that never was unemployed as an adult. So I was very proud of him for that. He was never unemployed. He never missed a paycheck for over almost 40 years. So a lot of times people wonder, well, how can this person afford that or this or this or this? And he earned it. He worked, and if you don't miss a paycheck for 34, 35 years, it's easy to make a whole lot of simple stuff happen.
Well, I mean, you could see on some of the pictures, old pictures and videos where he has this humongous loft, man.
Oh, yeah.
And you could see a lowrider parked right there, right next to it.
Oh, he had a couple of those.
Yeah. So I mean, he had it going on, man. And then not only that, but I've heard a lot of stories like he used to be the guy that he used to put these big long shows together, and all kinds of people used to go over, and there used to be auctions, and it was good turnouts, and he was probably one of the originals that brought big crowds like that,
Jerry, let me tell you this before the thought escapes my mind. So the ICRC used to have intercity competitions once a month, maybe 6 months out of the year, maybe even longer than that, because that was before the Falcon was just so pervasive. But I'm going to tell you, we would start on the west side. We may start at Inglewood, 7 o'clock in the morning, man. You may have 6 people there. We go to the next house, and 2 or 3 more people would join us. And, people were horse playing, shooting the breeze. And, each house we picked up a few more because it got later and later people were waking up. Says, I'm going to go to the fly. And some of those days we didn't touch my brother's house till maybe noon, 1 o'clock. By the time we would get to my brother's house at 16621 Thorsten Avenue in Compton, by the time we would get there, you could hear a pin drop. And I mean, the entire half block was taken up with parking, and people were even parking on Greenleaf, which I don't even know if that was legal back then. and when I tell you, it'd be 100 people in the backyard, total silence, because they knew on any given day, this guy was going to put on a show. And I hear people talk about low-flying birds. I can tell you this, my brother didn't do anything to make those. He didn't stock for that. They just were low-flying, in-your-face, deep, frequent birds, man. And I'm telling you, he didn't stock, this one rolled out of the center. I'm not saying that that's not what you should do, so don't take it that way. What I'm saying is he didn't stock birds for that. He stocked birds that like to roll. No trickery, just we're going to bring in the best rollers that do it all the time, that don't like them, that do not have to be manipulated. And I can tell you, I'm biased, but he threw some hell of a kiss. And I can tell you, he would even be more competitive these days because of the fact that the birds never left your face. I could see some judges easily giving him 1.7 for quality and depth, easily.
Yeah, I think, and you know what? I'm a true believer that in the near future, we're gonna have to fly some of those type of kits to get a judge's eyes. We got a lot of birds that are getting spread around nowadays because of social media, easy access to connect, do auctions, and a lot of birds are soon will be flown where you see a lot of activity. They're getting spread around more on the competitive side, but I see myself looking at teams that are kits that have that fast, deep stuff, so people be, oh man, this is the real deal right here. So, I could imagine, those kids.
It's a wonderful hobby, man. Other than my kids, and those are my life. You met them. I'm an old dad. I started at 50, but other than my kids, Jerry, the birds are second to nothing else. Everywhere I go, I'm looking up in the sky. I remember telling someone about this dream I had of buying this Kingdom. What was that one in Seattle? When they moved out of there, I felt like to buy it, put about 3,000 or 4,000 kit boxes in there, so no hawks could affect anything, and we just have a good old time at it. Of course, I'd have to use somebody like Ray to get the logistics part of it, but I'm a dreamer, man. I think out the box.
Yeah. That would be great. Well, it's extraordinary because I think I may have met your brother once, maybe once. But I always heard about it, like you, I was in the military and I was always kind of, my home station was here in Washington State. So I was always back and forth in the world. I always heard, oh yeah, those Hall boys, they working it out over there.
Hey, I was stationed on Y. Had I known they had no Falcons, I never would have left there. I was stationed there for 2 years. I would have bought property when it was cheap back in the 80s,
Yeah.
I never would have left.
Yeah. Well, hindsight is like they say 50-50, right? So you never know, but you still got an extraordinary group of guys in California. Every time I go, at least once a year, I try to make a trip down there. I get this darkness and the rain starts to get to me and I need some sun. Well, California is close enough, so, and every year I try to make a trip there. And I have to tell you, Bruce, I was a little shocked at the last convention, how many new guys there are. New young guys,
Yeah.
A lot of them don't know much yet, but there's so much more out there compared to when, compared to in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, and there's so much more access. And there's a lot of good birds now. I think we talked about that a little bit. There's a lot of good birds now. And the information is readily available. A lot of the information when we were growing up in the hobby, was I don't know, like coded or something. You had to figure out what a guy meant. If he said something. And now it's more plain. And that's why I'm always happy to get on the podcast. To talk to guys like you. Who remember all of that. Because there's some great pigeon people in the United States. And like you said about the hobby, it's a fantastic hobby. Look how it still got us, even at our age, we're still, like little boys, oh, I can't wait to get out and get those pigeons out,
So let me mention this because I'll forget. It may not go in order, but I'll forget. So mentioning Southern California birds without mentioning Norm Reed would be kind of sacrilegious. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories real quick. The first one is about Norm. So there was a money fly. This was way back in either the late 80s or 90s. I'm going to say 1990. They were having a money fly, right? The late Doug Brown, who used to play for the Los Angeles Rams, he was part of the CPRC. You probably knew him, right?
Yeah, I knew Doug.
Yeah. Okay, so he was judging. They were doing some panel judging at that time. First 3 guys with the score sheets. And I don't remember. I think Norm may have been the last flyer because he's so far north. And I remember Doug at about the 15-minute mark. He took the clipboard with the score sheet and just threw it into the air, and it landed on the dirt. And these were his words verbatim. He said, "Norm, you don't need any more points." And so the other judges placed their score sheets down on the ground too. So the reason I tell that story is, for one, like I said, to mention Southern California without mentioning Norm would be sacrilegious. Secondly, is there's levels to this, and some guys are just that much better than others. You know what I mean? And no one, and I don't recall, Ray, it could have been 50, 60 people there. Not one person said a word. This was before social media now, right? So, but not one person had a bitch with the situation. So we're bitching about the situation. So I just thought, to have been privy to that in comparison to now, guys, man, you'll get cursed out not calling that last 5-bird break right as the buzzard hits. You know what I mean? To see someone who was just that far out there in front of everyone. Now, at that time, and of course, there's other guys that flew. I knew Monty. I heard of Monty, and I'll tell you a story about Monty real quick. I think you'll find it pretty interesting. But for Southern California guys, he was untouchable. You know what I mean? John Jones flew some phenomenal birds. Those guys in San Diego to fly some birds. It was a shame that the Animal Wildlife just released all those falcons out there monthly out there because it killed that region. But they had some phenomenal flyers out there, man. And John Jones was as good as they come, man. He'd have birds with colors you couldn't even pronounce. And those suckers were spinning 30, 40, 50 straight, fast, and frequent, man. So anyway, real quick, and then I give you back the mic. I was going to tell you this Bonnie Needle story. So this was probably back in 1997, and then they had the Pageant of Pigeons there in San Bernardino. They used to have it there pretty frequently, right? And so I remember him going, he started asking people who were inside of the Pageant of Pigeons, hey, you live around here? He pointed to this guy. That guy said, no. I was standing relatively close. And he kept pointing. He got to the fifth person, which was me. He says, you live around here? I said, yeah, I live about 7-8 miles. He says, let's go. He didn't ask. He said, let's go. We're going to watch your birds fly, right? So we get in the car and right up. I say, hey, you want some coffee or something? We stopped at Yum Yum Donuts, which is right there on Foothill, right there before Riverside. I got him a couple coffees and donuts. He came to the house, straight to the backyard. You know, we started talking. He said, no talking. Just put some pictures up for me, right? So, you know, I put the birds up and, you know, they did okay. It was nothing close to his standards as far as kid competition. But I'm sharing this with you because this is one of my proudest moments as a pigeon flyer. You know, Norm Reed picked one of my birds out of show, and I never showed that bird again. His confirmation that it was a good bird was all I needed to hear, right? Well, kind of the same thing happened with Monty, right? So let me grab this real quick. So this letter here, can you see it?
Yeah.
That came from Monty. And we ended up being pen pals after that. You know, I don't remember how much longer he went, how long he stayed in California, but he went home after that, and we communicated by letter. And I told him, hey, you know, I would love to come out and visit you. He says, I'd be more than happy to put you up. I wanted to go out there and make it. So, and the moral of the story is kind of twofold, you know, because sometimes we put things off when we're capable of doing it because we're tired. And then, of course, you know how life always deals cards. You never know what card's coming next. So I remember I used to coach track and field at Eisenhower High School. And on June 10th of 2000, I tore my ACL playing a pickup game of football, touch football. So I'm laid up. And I was thinking, you know, the next day, I was thinking, I'm going to have to get in contact with Monty because, you know, I'm going to have a lot of time off. You know what I mean? So I was working a Teamster job. It was hard getting vacation. So anyway, the following day is when he had that accident. The following day, Ray. I remember thinking to myself, you know, life, we all have episodes. If you live long enough, you start to realize, don't talk about doing things. If you're going to do it, just like Nike says, their slogan is just do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether it's getting up at 4, it's getting up at 6, lifting weights, stop drinking, stop smoking. They just use 3 words. Yeah. Just do it.
Just do it.
And I regret, man, not being able to go see Monty Needle's birds because I was actually off work for 2 years.
Wow.
Well, you know, and you're right, man, because, you know, now we only live once, man, and if something that you really want to do, just go out there and just do it, just like you said, you know. And you know, I've been kind of following that myself, and I'll tell you right now, no regrets, man. That I just make it happen, whatever it takes, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, as you get older, you know, you realize that how important, you know, that saying is, you know. That's actually how I end up moving where I am right now. There's a valley north of Seattle that's protected farmland. And I swear, I came down here often, and every time I came down this way, I was always like, I just love it out here. You know, it's open, you know, there's not a bunch of people, you know, even the highway, you know, you just never crowded, you know. And the opportunity showed up a year ago, and I was like, wow, are you kidding me? Nice. And I did it. I was like, I'm doing it, you know. And I had been talking to Rick about it. I was thinking about moving to Eastern Washington, which is a little bit different from Western Washington. Lot more dry, more what do you call it? Mountainous and desert, high desert.
Yeah.
And I realized, and I was doing it more than anything, because of the birds of prey, And at some point I thought about it. I was like, man, it don't matter where you are anymore. It doesn't matter, You just have to you have to be able to deal with it, which makes it hard. And in the pigeon game, um, you know, it's hard for you. Are you still in California? You still in California? No.
I've been in southern New Mexico since 2006.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
He's next door to us, so
Yeah, pretty close.
we might
So,
have to just pick you up, Bruce. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Give us.
Yeah, I love it. No, Ray, I've been gone 18 years, man, and I don't
So
regret a single part of it.
No. How's your bird of prey problem there?
I finally accepted there's 16 weeks a year I could fly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, what we were talking about a few minutes back, I'm trying to breed the pigeons that are going to lock up as well as they can, come out, not hit anything, go right back to kidding, especially, if they can do it all in 3 or 4 days, that's great. It takes a week, but you know how those birds, sometimes they get a little wild. They develop on the perch, they're deep. And so I just don't bring those birds in. Just don't bring them in anymore. I've been offering birds probably the last 9 months straight on some of the auction blocks. I put some really good performance up there. So people use them widely, and they went pretty cheap. So, which that doesn't matter to me. I hope they get a chance to see what I know they're capable of. But it's 16 weeks. If on a good year, I may get 18. But if you came to visit me, you would be like, Bruce, what made you think you'd be able to fly pigeons here? You know what I mean? So to be able to get 16 weeks, I'm good with that, because I don't usually just get slammed with Coopers and sharp shins all during the year. You know what I mean? The falcons, this is their natural habitat, but there's thousands of wild birds around. Now, once September hits, they're coming in grabbing birds. And these falcons here are different. They don't chase. They usually 80% of the time their first dive is a kill. So you're not ending up with 10 or 15 birds flat. There's not enough feathers falling from the sky to make a pillow out of. So that's the saving grace. I don't have that issue here. And they kind of work on the schedule. They make 4 or 5 passes. If they haven't got anything, they're usually gone. They're usually gone the next day.
How's the weather in the summer over there? Is it like out here, Arizona?
It's dry like that, but it's not as warm, of course. If I told you how the weather was out here, this place would be full of it. From California, man, we have a climate that you would envy, to be able to be in an area that's not congested, and the price of living here. COVID's got everything a little jacked up, but you can still buy some real estate here. You can still find your house for $90,000. So if you're listening, man, and you want to come fly some pigeons with me, we can take a turn on the Falcons eating our pigeons, but you will have a break from them. You will have a break.
That's what I was going to ask. At least right here, at least here in the valley, it gets too hot around maybe, this month, May or end of April, they start migrating, going up north to Flagstaff or Sedona. So, that if you ain't got that like very hot weather, they probably just don't even migrate no more, huh?
Yeah, probably. And then, like I said earlier, just a few minutes ago, if you look and see how close I am to the mountain, you would be like, okay, Bruce, what would you expect? But it was a getaway. After I lost my last brother, he was murdered, and it was just a panic mode. I had to get away from California, and that's New Mexico. Believe it or not, I was planning on going to Tennessee. I had scoped out a house in Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
And then and then I decided, you know what? I'd rather be 12 hours away on a drive than having to get on a plane every time I need to get back home. And of course, had I known I wasn't going to see anybody anyway, hell, I probably would have went to Tennessee.
Yeah. That's where I went to, around the Jackson area, man.
Yeah. I like it up there.
Oh, yeah. It's getting populated now, though. I mean, a few years from now, it's going to be pretty overcrowded.
I was looking at a brand new home for $89,000. Of course, I was going to pay cash for it, because I just sold the one in California. So I was going to be sitting pretty had I gone to Tennessee.
Yeah.
So right now, what's your your program right now as far as your breeding going over there? I mean, how many pairs are you working with? I mean, what do you got time for? You know, I know you're still working and all.
No, I'm retired. I'm
Oh,
disabled.
are you?
But
Okay.
yeah, but no, this year I have more pairs than ever because I was trying to get enough birds out to be able to have something substantial to hold back for the lockdown. So I probably right now, and this is probably the most birds I've ever had, I probably am breeding out of about 15 deliberate pair and then probably another 6 or 7 in the open loft that I let mate up. And so I'm going to stop breeding here pretty early. And then, I'm going to cut back my numbers. But no, I've had birds that were related for a long time, but since I've been in New Mexico, I've been learning how to become a better breeder. You understand? I'm a better breeder now than I've ever been. So, you learn you have to follow those singular birds that are everything that you're looking for. Nothing's perfect, but everything that you're looking for in the sense of, they have all of the different traits that you're looking for. Those babies are locked down well. The grandbabies are locked down well. The spin is early enough to where every time you lose one in the falcon, you lose 2 or 3 from the same mating. You never put that pair together again and don't even know that you had gold in that mating, So I have some pretty good birds from that aspect. Now I just have to get them up and kidding and rolling a little bit before the lockdown. And hopefully the following year, Keith London says it all the time. The birds I breed this year for next year. That's as simple as I can put it. And I do the same thing. I still ain't his thunder when I say that, but I do the exact same thing. So I lost all my breeder hens in 2020, and I picked up 6 birds from Alan Weaver. He was kind enough to send them to me. Couple didn't really work out for me, and then one of them just died, walked in a cage, and it was dead. And one of the hens just never would lay. I put on several different cocks, and I never got her to lay. So that's what I have. I have some of those birds, not too many, but then I have these birds that are working out of my old stuff. Actually, I lost all the birds out of this one kit box, and there was 3 of them left. I just let them sit there for like 9 months here. I wasn't flying anything. I was kind of disgusted and said, okay, well, I got 3 birds to fly. Started letting them out. They were on the ground for the first month, and then they started taking up, flying, and I believe it or not, the falcon didn't even hit them because usually I could let one bird up during the worst part of the season. He'll come through, but he let these 3 birds fly, and one of them just started coming into the roll. That's the bird I named him Red Elvis, right? I won't explain his performance because no one will believe his performance. But what I will tell you is he was rolling with those 2 other birds like there were 50 other birds with frequency, style, speed, and everything. So I said, well, if this ain't a sign that, okay, that this is the bird to move forward with, then there's no sign to be had, And so that's what I'm working with now.
Nice.
And he's nothing but some of my old stuff with some of the Robert Parker 381 blood behind it. That's basically what he is in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And when you say, looking for certain traits, are these traits is everything in selecting from the air, or do you handle birds and look for certain things like feather quality or body style or temperament? You know what I mean?
I'm glad that you asked that. Well, for me, like there's probably some old timers. I have some birds that I've flown in my kids especially since I've been in New Mexico. And I can say this, and this is not bragging, there's probably 2% of the people listening to this that would believe that the parents of those birds were not flown. Now, with that in mind, that's not what I'm saying to do with your birds. What I'm saying is, especially when you're newer and you're figuring out a family or trying to obtain the maximum amount of yours, some of us are not far enough along to lose certain birds. Now, I don't know how people are going to take that, but some of us are not far along enough in our program to lose certain birds. There are birds, and I'm not saying it has to be 30 every year. And that's one of the things about talking in formats. Now people take so much out of context. So what I'm saying is this. If you learn your birds and you say, okay, this cock exudes everything I'm looking for. He's born in November. He's off of a great mating that I spent a year trying to sit down and pre-planning on paper. give a bird a try. If you know what he is genetically, give him a try. People are always astounded that great performers don't always work out to be great producers. And to me, that shouldn't be the case. You should always know that genetically what something is always going to predispose what you think it is. Because the flying that's just one part of it. Fly everything out if you want, if you have to. And I do fly most everything out. Every once in a while, a bird comes along that can have a positive imprint on your birds for the next 15 years. I personally think that's too good of a bird to watch the falcon fly off with. Me personally. Now, everyone has their own way of doing it. I've seen people who said every single bird that they're flying is out of birds that were flown. And it didn't translate, if you know what I'm saying. So anything that you think that you hear that's like, oh, you don't believe, take some time to prove it out. It's not going to cost you anything. If you believe that, all 40-foot birds are going to throw roll downs, or all 60-foot birds are going to throw an extra an extra breeding cage and put that bird to a 20-foot bird and test it out. At least that way, when you're on these forums and you're talking with people who have many decades of experience, you have some experience of your own to lean from. And you don't have to just take someone else's word to say, oh, this is a blanket statement. I'm a big track and field guy. So I'm going to say this just kind of to make the analogy. One of the reasons why you don't hear about sprinters out of Alaska? You don't hear about sprinters out of Alaska, whether they're professional or high school, because the climate is not conducive for fast twitch muscles. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure it out. So with our birds, it works the same way. There are certain climates in this country, you're not going to be able to do with those birds what you were able to do, what you're able to do in Phoenix. And I would even stand a reason in Phoenix, those birds are genetically going to be hardier than a lot of pigeons, because if you can withstand 117, what does the rest of the country have to offer? Some humidity? It may take a few generations for you to get the birds acclimated to that. But if they can handle 117 and run it through a half a gallon of water in 2 hours, that's hot as a sauna after an hour, I think that they would be able to handle just about anything.
Yeah. True. I'll applaud to that. You talked about creating these birds that you want the certain traits. Do you believe that you could get to the point where the majority of birds that you're breeding are stable performance to those traits as far as what you're producing? So, would it get to the point where you're able to say that I don't need to individual breed no more? These birds are almost cloned to each other. You think there's a possibility to get to that point?
Oh, no. Without a doubt, it's kind of like, you having to win a lotto ticket numbers a week after the draw, the chances are always there that you can do that. And I only went back to the individual pens because my birds would act really stupid in the open loft. You get two cocks going together and then the two hens are without a mate, and of course birds jumping in different nests. And so, no, I believe it should be as easy as possible. And you're right. You get the right birds in your breeding loft, and you have chosen those birds to the highest degree of knowing that their genetic propensity will be passed down to generation and generation. I think there's probably guys out there that are probably raising 72, 75% scoreable, decent pigeons. Now, you're not going to know it because of all the losses that people take. That's why I say 50-50. You should be shooting for, all of us should be shooting for more than that, because I think you can just get that just throwing 12 hens and 12 cocks. I think the proposition would still be around 50%. So I think in order to do well, especially once you start taking the losses, you should be shooting for 65%. 66% is 2 out of 3. And that, with today's birds and the know-how, and certain birds really inbreed and line breed better than others. There's lines that have been created 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and some of those descendants are still power packed with all those positive traits. So it's proof in the pudding it can be done. I don't care whether you breed open loft or individual. I just personally like to do it that way because my birds, everyone's birds have something that they have a liability in. I said the old Higgins birds, the kind of, you can get a lot of good roll out of them, but they mature really quickly.
Yeah.
The males do, they mature really quickly. And this is not a knock. Jerry was one of my closest friends, but that was the downside to them. So you just have to work around that. You're still going to breed the cockbirds. So what are you going to do to make it to where they're 9 and 10 months old, been locked down for 5 months, and the only thing they're interested in is breeding. Keeping in mind that now their maturity, their mental and physical, on the same plane now. Yeah. You know, it's harder to break those kind of birds down to where they're not bumping all over the place, because trust me, those birds have a lot of depth factor in them, even this far away from some of those original birds that he bred. So, I find it to be challenging for that reason. And I always look forward to that challenge, you know, and then to not have a bunch of red birds. I have a ton of red birds working on getting rid of some of that. But it's everybody in the hobby, man. We have a cross to bear, and some of us are just better at it than others.
Yeah.
And you know, you get birds from these guys that are World Cup champions, and you can't do anything with them. Well, you know what? The last thing you need to do is badmouth those guys. Yeah. Just say, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't know the secret. Maybe I don't have the whatever. Maybe I don't have the know-how. Yeah. But you can't have a guy that's in the final every year, and then you badmouth the birds, saying, well, I can't even get them to A, B, and C. Well, he can get them to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. You know, there's a problem with him. You know what I mean? So you have to look for that.
Yeah, and before I go on further on this subject, they had asked your brother, like, in the roller politics, what would you take out? And he says haters, you know, and then they ask him, give the characteristics of that, and he says, I'll just give you a description, and it says it's a guy that talks a lot and doesn't. He says talks a lot, doesn't fly, doesn't participate. So, you know, those are those guys right there that you just mentioned, you know, and he's right, man, because you know, it's you have a lot of that in this hobby, you know.
There's a difference between being ultra competitive and being, you know, messy. And here's the thing, you know, I'm going out next month to judge, and I don't really care to judge anymore. I just think that people don't take their L's well anymore. It used to be a time losing motivated people. Now you have people who score 50 points who thinks there was a real difference between that and the 400 you gave someone else. And I'm not putting anyone's name on it, but what I'm saying is judging is already thankless enough. I just went out and judged the Texas region a month ago. I got stuck over there in Bush Airport for 17 hours, slept under a bench. And you know what? I love it. I loved it, man, because you know what? I felt like I was giving back to the NBRC because I haven't been able to fly. Yeah. We haven't had a region forever. So, but people need to understand, and as old timers, when we get people in the game, we need to teach them. Don't just give them some frequent birds. Teach them how to care for them. Teach them how to fly them. And if you're going to fly competition, make sure you teach them the difference between activity and separation. I'm going to be honest with you. The kind of judge I am, Ray, every yard I step into, I'm hoping this guy scores 2,000 points. The birds are separated. Now it's just a matter of me calling 16 versus the 13, me calling 10 versus the 9, me calling 11. Those are the kids everywhere I go. My fingers are crossed that I see that. Yeah. Now, because the kids that cause the biggest commotion are the ones that are people are oohing on, and the birds are back together in half a second. You know why they're back together? Because they never went anywhere. They never. And so, and if you have people counting 17 of those, and you give them 2, and then at the end of the score, it looks more like a football score as opposed to a basketball score. They're going to be really hurt. So that's one of the things that, as veterans, we should make sure that when we give people birds, we go over there and mentor how they're flying them. And when they're oohing on over these birds that are twizzling or dropping out there 2 and 3 feet, you have to tell them, look, no, that's not it. That is not it. And so that's where you lose more judges. The gap between whether you call the birds right or not, those type of kids I just described, those are going to call more commotion than the ones I mentioned before. And we need to make sure that people know you can't breed those kind of birds. And an established judge shows up, he's not going to call that.
Yeah.
That's
And you
right.
know, you're absolutely right. And you know, I like to get into the subject in the judging because you know you got. I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, and I'm gonna tell everybody. I like the way that Bruce judges, but we're gonna get into that right now, Bruce, because this is a serious subject, and you got the experience in that. You know, I like to go back to where we're talking about, you know, breeding out them pigeons that you said that you know you get to the point where you start getting a higher percentage of what you're looking for within the birds. Okay, but when you get to that point, how do you feel about executing more on the performance as far as conditioning the birds? What would you think, is that important as far to get that
No, no,
activity one as
yeah,
conditioning?
of course. I'm in a situation where I could only fly one time of the day, and it's way closer to dark. So I can't experiment too much. I mean, overflights here are not the same as they are for most people in North America. But I still lose some birds when I overfly. I mean, most of the time I get all of them back. So I'm not at the liberty to do too much flexing with that. Uh, as far as the conditions, you do like Bobby Bradley, the guy that used to live in Nashville. Man, this guy he was an amazing competitor. And you get to the point where every single thing that you're doing with the pigeons, to the grain, to this guy had he had the humidity down, he had the temperature, the wind speed, the time of day he flew them out. The last bird comes out of there, he's putting a stopwatch on the first bird last. So to get to those levels, and you're headed that way, you have to be that intricate with all those small details. Now there are guys who have a much more established family who can probably get away with not being so regimented in every area because they've got 20, 30 generations, 20 or 30 years worth of their birds that they've been drawn off of, and they're reliable for those particular traits that involve doing well in kid competition. But the condition and everything matters. I'm gonna be honest with you. I need to up my game on the condition because on conditioning, but because I can only fly one time a day, I can't give them certain types of feed that may put them into a 2 hour because I'm going to lose them all. So, and I know after flying out here for 18 years, there's only so much I can do as far as fly time. I know what my fly time is. I got to take what they give me. So for a person like you who can play with it, you have to just be studious and write everything down and then be honest about what you're seeing. Get your grocery store clicker, click the number of breaks. You don't have to necessarily click the size. And if you continue to do that for some years, you're going to start to realize, okay, I've heard 18 people say that if you give this, this, and this, it works. Well, my birds are doing better on A, B, and C instead of C, D, and E, or whatever the case may be. So it's trial and error when it comes to that, especially if you're dealing with birds that are crossed. You know what I mean? You got to get that genetic pool to the point where they think alike, they walk alike, they talk alike, they eat alike, they sleep alike, and of course they fly alike. When the birds are really, when you got your birds on point, as far as their kidding ability, they'll roll out there, and sometimes in 3 or 4 weeks, you may have 10 birds collide with each other when they're rolling out of there. That's when you know, okay, you got that part of it down. They're not so widespread where, there's birds on the left side of the kid rolling, there's birds on the right side of the kid rolling, there's bird in the middle. And those kits are much harder for judges to give you those bigger breaks. So you may see an active kid, and some of those judges, some of the more conservative judges may want to give you the 12, but it's hard to have two eyeballs in three different places. So those three on the right, those two in the middle, three on the left, he's going to call them a 7 or 8 when maybe it was a 10. So you need to concentrate on not only condition, but getting those birds to fly as tightly as they can within reason. And, you should see birds hitting each other from time to time.
Yeah.
I know that's going to really take some people off, but when they're kidding tightly, that's going to happen. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes I think conditioning too is like, it could probably help. Like it could probably help you, like places like where there's a lot of bird of prey, because you figure there's areas with bird of prey where you fly them every day, you're gonna get hit every day. You're probably gonna lose one every single day. You know what I mean? So if you could condition your birds to where they'll fly longer in 3 days. They just fly almost 3 times longer than what they'll fly every single day or every other day you're flying. Then you only got 3 days to lose birds instead of 7 days. You know what I mean?
That
So
makes a lot of sense.
if you have them
That makes a
flying
ton of sense.
if you have them flying an hour and a half to 2 hours, yeah, you're at risk of getting a bird taken away, but you're also at risk of getting a bird taken away every day if you fly every day. So you only fly
Yeah,
three
no doubt.
birds in 3 days, and they're flying longer. They're making up for the time they don't fly those times you rest. So I mean, like I'm trying all kinds of different stuff that I was like, oh man, this makes sense. I'm hearing from this
Well, that's
guy,
how
from
you.
this guy. You know what I mean? So instead of
Yeah,
losing
that's how you
7
figure it
birds,
out.
now you're losing 3 birds because you're only flying 3 times a day, but they're flying longer, so you're getting the same amount of flight time. You know what I'm saying? But it's
I
Mhm.
all
love that you're a student. I love that you're a student of this, man. You are
Yeah.
so entrenched.
yeah, and
I love it. And
it's
be
all
honest
on the
with you,
conditioning of the bird to get them there to do that. You know?
Well, there's a couple things that Bruce said, and I'll add to that. But when you're just established in a family, it takes some time to get the predictability. Once you have predictability in the group of birds that you have, then you kind of have an idea what they need when it comes down to feed, how to mate. I mean, all of these things come into play when you have your own family. And like you said, a guy that's had his birds for 30 years, created his own family, probably knows that family pretty darn well, So, and he knows all the little tweaks. It doesn't mean that he is not always trying to work to make them better, or that he may not try something new in a feed to feed, to get them into condition. But he does have some predictability, and he has a very good idea when those birds come out what they're going to do on a daily basis. Now that could change a little bit, here and there. But one of the things that I'd like to add is numbers, the number of birds you're flying. I mean, do you have time? Do you have time to fly, 300 birds?
no. I mean, I'm trying to get 6 kit boxes, and I
Right.
get half of them full. I have a 10-year-old daughter. I have a 13-year-old son. My daughter, my birthday's tomorrow. Her birthday's in 8 days. She graduates elementary school on the 24th. My cousin's flying out on the 22nd. So, I'm where you were probably 30 years ago, Ray.
Right.
I'm in raising children, soccer, taekwondo.
Yeah.
I don't have that much time.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, even if I had the time, you let something out here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock afternoon, 6 o'clock in the morning, you won't have a single bird no more. You just not gonna have it.
All that comes into play.
Yeah.
You have to, whatever you're flying, you have to have the time to do it. I remember Robert Parkey when he won the World Cup. He came and judged the next year. And one of the things Robert, and I heard Robert say this more than once, is he said, I knew every bird in that kit, every bird. I knew what every bird in that kit did. I knew every bird's flaw. I mean, I knew those birds. And he also said it took me a lot of effort to get those birds where they were, that year when I won the World Cup. He said, I did a lot of, it took a lot of focus, to do that, Now he's got more predictability now because he's got that family where he wants it to be. He's got predictability now. I just think predictability matters, man. But when you lose the birds to birds of prey, before they've proven themselves out, you don't really get to prove your breeders, and that hurts,
Yeah.
But you're totally right.
I think a good way to combat that is because all of us do it. You go to Denny's, you go to wherever you go to sit down, have coffee. My girlfriend can tell you I got 80,000 pieces of paper all over the house. Potential meeting. But if you think about those matings for 6 months in advance, maybe the best thing to do is to run them 2 years straight, so that you can sort of make up for the losses. Now, if you breed 10 birds and 9 of them are caught, well, shit, you may not really want to put that pair back together.
Right.
That's not a really good sign. But maybe what we need to think about doing is saying, you know what? I have thought about this mating upside down, backwards, sideways, diagonal, top, bottom, everything. So maybe I should run that pair 2 years in a row. That way you get a chance to see something come to fruition. Because the chances that you're going to lose 2 years worth of breeding, lose every single one of them, are much slimmer than 4. If you breed 4 in 2024 and then 2 blank eggs, and you're like, well, I'm not going to breed any more than that. I don't want a whole bunch of holdover birds that can't get up. So maybe to kind of combat that, we should put, I'm not saying every pair of birds, but those ones that you just know in your gut, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
know they're going to work. Maybe we should run those for 2 years straight.
Or start practicing different types of breeding, like I am. I'm doing the polygamy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're good with that.
Well, that's what I like about Jerry. I mean, in all these, everybody we talk to, everybody we interview, you get something out of every one of them. There's no doubt about it. At least Jerry is willing to weigh what he's heard, which is what we all should do. Weigh what he's heard, look at and know what he already knows, and says, you know what? That's a good idea. I should try it. At least you prove to yourself whether it's going to work or not for you. It might not, but hell, it might. You don't know if you don't do it, right? It's like a mate. If you don't put it together, you don't know.
Yeah,
you don't know
from your mistakes. But I mean, you got to practice it. You know what I mean, in order to know that if it failed or it was good. And if you don't know, then you're just going off by what the other person is telling you, and he's going off by what he heard or read on a book. You know what I mean? But if it's a good idea, man, you got to try everything. Just like Kevin Monroe sent me a video of him with the crow call. He's like, you got to try everything. Amazon's gonna be like, man, what the heck? It's not even crow season. There's a bunch of crow calls selling right now.
Real quick comment. This is unrelated to pigeons, but one of the things because you and I've been cool from the first time I met you, but I do love your enthusiasm. I love how you are entrenched in every single aspect, and you don't even know you're on a pace to know more than I know about certain things with these pigeons way earlier than, and I should know a lot of it. But what I was going to ask you, this is the attitude and I think people need to take when learning about trying to get their pigeons to their highest peak. I'm going to use a track and field analogy again. That was my world. I coach youth league. So I coached youth league back in, started coaching back in 2000. I only coached youth league for 4 years. Now, what the point of this is, you can learn something from everyone. So don't just take one look with as little bit of time as you have to fly a pigeon uninterrupted. You need to learn as many hard, fast rules as you can that are factual. So being that I said that, I'm going to tell you this story. I was a sprinter in high school, junior high school. I ran track all my life. I started coaching, and I had a position open up to be a high jump coach, right? I never high jumped once competitively in my life. Even to this day, never once. I got a group of kids, and the first year in junior, my first year of coaching, I had a guy finish 5th in the nation in high jump, 10-year-old kid. Okay, never jumped competitively. No, it gets a little better than that. The following year, I had a girl who took it all, 11 years old, and she even told me, what you taught me, Coach Hall, got me a full ride. She's a graduated Red Raider. It got her a full scholarship to Texas Tech, and I don't know if she held the school record there or not, but she learned that technique from a guy who never competitively jumped. I'm not telling you that to brag. I've had many sprinters do well. And in California, that's a big deal. But I say that to say you can learn something from everybody.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and
No doubt about it.
you know, before I cut you off on the judging and because I really want to get deep into this subject.
Okay.
You know, I feel that it's very important to have good judges out there to, like you said, explain and share the knowledge. And you came out here to Arizona and you judged our region, and I was amazed because you're just straight forward with calling the calls, the scoring, telling us what were you watching, how were you scoring it, and why. And I really like that about you, man, because I learned a lot about judging that day when you know I was like insecure of what I was seeing in my backyard and how would I judge it. And you know, I really appreciate that you went out like that and explained yourself to us. Yeah, how do you feel about judging? I mean, you're getting you just judged Texas, and you know, I really hope that a lot of people consider you as far as going out to the region and judge. Could you give us a little example of your style of judging and what you're looking for out there?
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. So now, like I told you 3 days ago when I texted you, I said, you're going to probably hear some off-cuff things from me because I'm an out-of-the-box thinker. So let's just start with the 1.0 to the 2.0. Again, I have to reiterate this so that people will know it's not an attack on the system. It is just the way I, Bruce Hall, sees it.
Mhm.
I'm not 100% sure that there are 10 degrees separation from a good scorable roller to a phenomenal one. I don't know it. I am willing to be tested on that if people would show me. So for you to get a 1-0 with me, the birds are going to have to be right in my face, no doubt. And I mean, they're just falling like cotton balls, shooting 3 feet. I'm not sure if there's 10 degrees of separation between a scorable 10-foot bird and a, whatever you want to call, blur, the most excellent rolling 60-foot bird that you would give a 2.0. So mentally, for me, what I say is to myself, okay, I'm looking at it from more of a 1.1 to a 1.6. I will give a 1.7 if I see it. So that's just where I'm starting in my mind. Now, if I see birds that are phenomenal, before anything, we have to remember it's all subjective. If I called many breaks at your house I called some big breaks at your house, Jerry. Those breaks weren't me saying I could actually see 4 birds going 22 feet, 4 of them going 12 feet, and the other 6 went 15. It's the best estimated call after looking at and judging pigeons, my own as well, because there's a lot of times I'm looking at my birds, I'm thinking, man, the wrong judge with these birds 1,000 points. You know what I mean? And it's like there's nothing up there. So that's where I start. And then I like people to stand close because I get a chance to say, okay, you see that? There was no separation on the break. Some of them went, but there's no separation. And so the easiest way, most people are visual learners, right? So visually, that's where you're going to start to teach people, okay, well, that's what he was looking at. I could play the 5 to 9 game all day long. If you win between 5 and 9, shame on the people for not being able to get double scores, 10 or above. When we start getting to 10, I want to really see. I want to see 10. And we get into 15, man. I hate to say it, I almost want to see 16. You know what I mean? So, but that's just how I do it, and I just always remind myself that the harder, the cleaner they're rolling, and the deeper they're rolling, and the lower they are, those are the easier calls to make. Still being subjective, but I judged with other judges before, and we were 0.67 points off on a total score that we gave someone, and we were 100 yards away from each other. That happened with Keith London and I, maybe more than once. So that is kind of what I look at. As far as the quality, I know that there are birds that people do not see as Well, it doesn't really get any better. Perfect example, Earl Forney, I went out there and flew some birds, and he had this black white-fly bird last month, man. Phenomenal bird. I mean, I started laughing, man. I started giggling. The bird was so good. And I'm talking about giggling while I'm judging, right? It's like, there's no way this bird is supposed to be that good, that clean, that deep, that fast. And I mean, and what I loved about it was every single roll, man. What was one of Mike Tyson's line? Every punch has bad intentions behind it. Every roll this bird did had bad intentions as far as I'm going to show this judge doesn't live around here. I'm going to make sure when he goes home that he doesn't forget what he saw. And I wrote on the comments, man, it was a 2.0 bird, and it was a 2.0 depth, 2.0 quality. I think the one part we need to kind of get over is you watch sports, you watch golf swings, you took a Tiger swing, and you say, okay, what could have been better with that swing? It had the distance, his hip rotation was perfect. If it's perfect, call it that.
Yeah.
What's wrong with calling it that? If you see your favorite baseball player hit a ball 500 feet and you see there's not a flaw in that swing, call it that. What's wrong with calling it that? Well, and so I go with an open mind. I mean, I always want to see birds coming out at 30, 40 feet because they're so much easier to judge when they do that.
And right there, you just put the words to make it real clear. So much easier to judge. And like I said earlier, you know, a lot of these birds, they're putting up big numbers. They're getting picked up by a lot of people around the country, and sooner or later you're gonna see a lot of that, you know, going on. So it's gonna be very important if you have within that team the scoreable birds that are just so much easier to score. And we all know which ones are those, because you're gonna see 2 or 3 of them in the team. You know what I'm saying? And I think that we need to concentrate in cultivating more of that, because you know we're getting the oohs and wees on the big breaks, but it's not all about the big breaks. You know what I'm saying? It's the all quality proper roller that I think we should concentrate on. You know, when you were talking about separation. What is separation to you? What explain for those that are new to the hobby and are hearing these new terms, you know?
So let's just say a bird, you know, it's kind of simple. I think it's fairly simple. You see an 8-bird break. You know, let's say a guy flying 16 birds. You see an 8-bird break, and 8 birds go out there between, let's just say 15 to 40 feet, and they've completely left the other 8 behind. That's just it. For me, I'm at a point in my life, I just like to keep things simple. You can convolute things and make it all, but that's what separation means to me. The birds that rolled out are on a completely different plane than the ones that didn't commit. And that's just what I see as separation.
It's that simple, really.
Yeah.
It is.
For me.
From start to finish, you know. You could,
yeah.
And you know what? I'll say this, you know, the great thing about judging is I've been able to see some kids, your kid was included in that, Jerry, that made me go home and say, okay, I got a lot of work to do to catch these dudes, you know. Yeah. I've got individual birds that are right there with them, but my kids are not there.
That's right. That's part of getting out of your yard, you know, because if you don't, you never see that. You know what I mean? You don't have a comparison.
Yeah,
you know?
and
So,
like I said, man, we're gonna see a lot more of good kits out there, and you know what? You don't need to be in the hobby 20 plus years to be able to have birds like that, because I haven't. You know what I mean? And right off the bat, what was the word out there? Who was the judge? What he's done, man. You know what, man?
Hey,
give the credit, man. You like, come on, man.
Let me touch on that real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, I mean to cut you off. I'll just forget. We need to get that part of the hobby needs to go.
Yeah.
If you didn't videotape it, it didn't happen. If you weren't there, it didn't happen. Or the judge cheat. We need to get rid of that, because that's all that's going to do is cut down on participation. What I give a guy in Arizona has absolutely zero bearing on what a guy in California is going to do. If you make the finals, you're going to have to see him, and it will be with a completely different judge. Where I always feel vindicated, Jerry, is oftentimes when a guy qualifies from when I judged. The final judge come through, and it's tighter judging. I get it, but the quality multipliers are sometimes right on the money. And so with your kid, you finished in the top 10. I didn't get a single apology. So did 2 judges cheat for you?
Yeah.
We need to get that out.
Yeah,
We need to get that out of the
not
hobby.
only that, look at me. I've been, I've been DQing, scoring real low. You know what I mean? I got to work myself up to that point again. I mean, I've had issues, but you know what? It's not going to be like that all the time, but you got to give credit to the flyer and to the judge because I mean, everybody at the fly is gonna see who's the best flyers in that event right there in that competition. So I mean, it's like but you know what? And another judge that man is just like you, man. We just had him over here, Ruben Solorio, man. He was just it reminded me of you, man. He was just sharing and. Hey, come over here, guys. Come here. See this. He wanted to explain to you what he was calling. You know what I mean? And that's very
that's
important.
how you learn to judge.
Yeah.
That's how guys learn. That's how you teach guys how to judge. I mean, how long we've been talking about this?
Yeah.
I don't know how many times you've seen me on the NBRC thing saying, that's what we need to do. Yeah. When you're judging, tell a guy. Let the crowd kind of know, okay, this is what I just saw, Now, you may not agree with, because those oohs and ahs they don't mean very much.
Yeah. When they start asking, who's the judge, it's the judge that had confidence to yell out what he was scoring. You know what I mean? That's who it was.
Another thing real quick, I'm going to be honest with you, Jerry, full disclosure. When I handed you that sheet and I don't know if you remember your initial reaction, you got choked up.
Oh, yeah?
And that touched me, man, because I remember you telling me you quit your day job to work nights and your wife is real understanding and all the things you said, and then to have that come all to fruition where you actually got a chance for 50 people to be there, someone to give you the points that you earn, and it touched me. Yeah. It reminded me of a guy who's just been trying.
Yeah.
In the gym at 4 a.m. and it was really it was heartwarming to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna tell you straight up, man. I'm like, there's a lot of us like this in this hobby, man. We're out there and we're taking it serious. It's a passion, and you know what? It's nerve wracking, you know what I mean? When when the day comes and you're opening the kit box
you're nervous,
and
man.
you have a bunch of guys out there, you're like, man, you're starting to sweat, man. Me and my club member, we'll go buy a pack of cigarettes. The nervous, I don't smoke at all, and I'm smoking cigarettes that day. You know what I mean? But yeah, man. When that time comes and you do good, man, I'll tell you, man, it's the best thing ever. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, did we lose Bruce?
Oh man, I think we lost him. Let me. He probably lost his dead battery. Let me call him up. His phone probably died out on him. I forgot to tell him. Maybe we might be on here for a long time.
Yeah. Go over an hour.
Yeah, so you better plug your phone. Hey, Bruce. Yeah. So, give me just a sec. Let me see if I can get a hold of him. Oh yeah, you know what? He gave me just a second.
He's coming on. Looks like
he's okay.
Trying to get on.
Cool. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about here on this.
Okay. All right. Sorry for that interruption.
Did your phone die?
I was trying to hang up the phone, and my daughter's blowing up the phone, and I was trying to hang it up, and it answered it. So sorry.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but yeah, man. Go ahead.
Let me ask a couple questions, Bruce, in reference to judging. This would be my last question about it, but let's talk a little bit about the proper etiquette of the people surrounding the judge. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's an important subject. It's hard to get guys to judge because there's so many of us, and all of us are having our competition. I mean, let's talk about respect. Not only for the judge. Let's talk about how you should treat the judge. How you should feel. I mean, I guess you can't tell a guy how he should feel when it's all said and done. But what do you think? When it comes to that, the proper etiquette for when the judge is there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't keep the people from doing everyone all, and that's just some people, unfortunately, have never been there. They've never seen it. Sometimes, and then sometimes it's just a natural visceral reaction that people have, and it's completely benign. That's kind of a tough one, because here's the thing. I don't want to tell people to be good losers, but I want to tell people sometimes someone else was just better. And often, man, really most of the time, man, no matter where you go and watch someone judge, it is so seldom that the wrong kid wins. Now, now you can start comparing apples to oranges when you start talking about, well, the winning score was 68, the second place guy was 66, and the third place guy was 59. There's always going to be room for some commentary there. But when an established judge is separating someone 100, 200, 300 points and giving them multipliers, I think we need to learn to just say, okay, were those guys Spurs better than me on that day? And if the answer is yes, making disparaging remarks about the judge doesn't do anything. Because here's the straight up raw truth, whether people like it or not. If 6 judges give you the same low score, low multipliers, guess what? You have work to do. Because once you start throwing that C word in there, you have to assume that someone took on the invitation to judge. Because I never asked the judge, never.
Right.
So accepted that I don't like flying. I have young kids. I don't like being separated from them. I stayed in George Bush Airport for 17 hours, and I did it like a trooper, because I think about what the World Cup judges and the NBRC final judges go through. I'm no better than them. And it's all part of the experience. Things happen that are out of our control. The judge was supposed to be there at 6. Well, guess what? The airline didn't get in there till 10. Well, so you could blame the NBRC all you want, but at the end of the day, what did you want me to do? You want me to fly the plane? You want me to land it behind your house? So you have to learn. You have to learn to say, okay, this, and it's not an even competition. This isn't like we're going into the weight room and we're going to put two plates on each side, and every NBRC member has to go in there and hit this 15 times. And then for the ones that do it, you make the finals, and the ones that don't, you're out. No, it's subjective. It's subject to weather, subject to birds of prey. It's subject to judges' opinions, good, bad, or indifferent. So you have to take all of that into consideration. And some of these guys are much better than the average one of us. We have to see to be better.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. Look, the one thing that I haven't had the chance to do is sit under one of Rick Mead's kids. Rick Mead's he's one of few fancers I really respect the dude. I've never been to his house. But you have to know what as many finishes as top 10 top finishes as he's had, with other people with his birds are doing the same. It's real. Whatever he's doing over there, it's real. You know what I'm saying? And so acknowledge that, because that'll give you room to say, okay, if I can't beat Rick, I'm gonna make Rick beat me by 10 points, which means I'm gonna get better than I ever have before.
Right.
And you never know. You may beat Rick one time.
Yeah.
Whatever. Right. But you have to acknowledge those things to be able to get better. It's no different than in sport. There's always somebody better, but you learn more about conditioning. We talk about the body, but now we're talking about the pitches. You learn more about anything. I'm at the point in my life, from a physical fitness standpoint, I can train anybody to do anything. You know what? I have the knowledge and I know the nutrition part of it now. 30 years ago, I didn't know it. Now, it would be a piece of cake to train anyone. And I've done it. I've done it numerous times. I used to actually train. So that you just have to get better at your endeavors and then still admit, you know what? There's guys out there like Arnold, man, almost 80 years old. Makes people look like they're puny, look like you never make some people look like they never lived. You know, so we just have to acknowledge that sometimes people are better. There's levels to it. And what do they say in track? If you can't win, make the winner break the record, right? Make the winner break the record, which means you won't be far behind.
That's right. Push it.
Push them. Push them.
That's right.
You know, you hear a lot about, that certain guys or certain flyers, a certain area, it's unfair, to some other people that have better fly conditions and all that. Do you feel? I mean, you're experienced judge. Do you fear there's something that we should add to the rules or take away or something to make it more better, or just leave it as it is?
No, we could make that analogy towards everything. There are people who have two loving parents, loving grandmother, loving great grandparents. They turn out to be horrible, rotten people. There are people like me raised by a single parent. Mother never made more than $12 an hour. Bought a house not because she wanted to buy a house. She bought a house because she knew her boys needed a yard to put their pigeons in, and she made it happen. And in life, you can make all the excuses in the world of life. If everything was going to be evenly doled out, who would everybody say is neutral enough to do the doling? You know what I mean? Life is just like that. Life is beautiful. Some stuff you do well in, some stuff you do so in, some stuff you do. But you know what? Blessings come from our kids being good kids, respectable, having a job that's steady, you never get laid off, having a home where you didn't buy it for too high or too low, or too high anyway, you got a good interest rate. There's so many things in life we have to say, that's a win for me. That's a win for me. Where we're brought up, where we fly our pigeons, it's just a luck of the draw. You could move somewhere where there's no falcons, and in 2 years there's falcons. So what do? By the time you start making rules, you start making all these separate rules. Well, if a guy's 5'10" or under, he can scare the birds up after he calls time in because they didn't really see him. The guy that's 6 foot, 7, well, no, he can't spook the bird. You start dissecting all these dumb rules, and then football is still 100 yards on every field, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So when you start playing at 12, if you make it to the pros, it's the same 100 yards.
And it's important to keep going forward. I mean, you see a lot of guys that use their situations where they live at to say, you know what, I'm not gonna compete no more. I'm not gonna do it. You got guys like Marshall Duncan, Abel Ibarra. They're still competing. You know what I mean? And they you know what I mean. They'll mention it here and there, but when it comes down to compete, their entries are there. They're putting up hits, you know what I mean? So
man.
I mean,
look, a prime example is Michael Walden. I mean, man, I've been knowing Michael since the early 90s. Michael had heart problems back then in the late 80s, early 90s. And the guy's a double master flyer. He never quit.
Yeah.
He kept doing it. He kept going, I think overall, you have to be honest with yourself with the pigeons when it comes down to it. And I think a lot of people aren't. I don't want a judge to come and tell me I got something great in my backyard, and I don't. I want him to be honest with me. If you've never seen a great kid, if you've never seen a great pigeon, then it's kind of hard to imagine something you've never seen. But if you've seen it, you never forget it.
Oh, no.
Never. Yeah, it never leaves you, it never leaves your mind, So I think a lot of it is guys have to be honest with themselves. When we were talking about etiquette, when I asked that question about etiquette, basically, what I was saying is, look, you know, like you said, you know, most of the time when you go out and judge, you didn't call somebody and say, "Hey, I want to come and judge you." The guy's looking for a judge. You agree to come and do it. Um, you know, appreciate what the judge has come to do, you know, and treat him right, you know. And if you don't like the way he judged, just don't have him back, you know. But don't get on the internet and, you know, trash it, you know, because it's just not right, you know. It isn't, you know. And if the kid, the best kid, like you said, I'd say 97% of the time, the best kid is the kid that wins. Usually.
And those are great percentages, no matter what you're applying it to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
And
So
when it comes to you know, judging, we talked about the depth a little bit, separation. What to you, what is the quality? What are you giving the multiplier for when it comes down to quality? Is it the whole performance of the birds, kidding style? What do we consider quality when we judge quality?
That straight over can't see the wings or can't count the roll, because the same kit can give you 5 or 6 different angles. You could catch them to the south, and you can catch them to the north. You can catch them up top. So it's not that difficult to have one kit look get 3 or 4 different views of them. But it's that I used to say to people, you know, the velocity of the roll, you don't have to look for it. The fastest birds will catch your eye. You know, and that's what I'm kind of basing on. Like I said, I know that it's subjective. I've seen a lot of phenomenal pigeons in my life, and I'm drawn off of some of that experience as well when I judge pigeons. You know, as far as the quality, like I said, you know, if you keep them in my face for 18 of the 20 minutes, it's going to be easier for me to give you the multipliers, as opposed to 2 of the minutes they're down. I saw them hit a 2 or 3, not even break, just an individual. Then they go up where you can't see them, and then you expect me to judge their high break score based on what I saw low. Then you're going to be disappointed in the score, you know. So I don't know if that's answering your question. I just keep it simple. I know what it looks like. There's different styles of roll. You know, I'm talking about birds with their wings out or anything like that, but it's subjective. I'll be the first and second person to tell you when I'm calling it's subjective, but it is based on some experience. I've seen a lot of really good kids. And so that's all and I go by, I don't know. I'm willing to listen to people offer up their opinions on it. I don't know if there's a difference, if there's a 10-degree difference between the 1.0 bird and the 2.0 bird. I don't know. I tend to not believe that.
Well,
but
as far as, what do you mean on the quality?
On the quality, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, what the way I kind of look at things is like, I'll personally think that a kid would have to get punished a little bit when you see a bird executing outstanding quality to the point where you have time to evaluate that bird and be like, yep, that is what it is. And versus it doing for a quick 10 foot and not really understanding whether, okay, could he have gone further with that? And I mean, the quality, it's got to have it.
I agree with you.
To the point where you could understand it and be like, you know, 1 second, 2 second, yep, that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Because a bird could come in and just lose it. And I mean, I don't know, man. I like to see a quality be judged with enough time to evaluate that quality. You know what I'm saying?
It has to be that way. You're absolutely right. I mean, 10 foot is not enough. That can be real quick. Yeah. And some of the 10 footers, which is a basketball goal, that's what I kind of, when I'm measuring, because I don't have any real reference. I'm not a pilot. I don't work on telephone poles. So I use a basketball goal as a reference for 10 feet. If you breed for 10-foot birds, here's the problem. You're going to get your 10 and 12s and 15s, but guess what? You're going to get your 3s and 4s. Yeah. So you need to understand that
Yeah.
If you shoot for 20, shoot for 30, and you get an average 18 to 20, you're going to be awarded some of the multipliers higher more often than if you're shooting for 10. You're getting 12 on the south side of it, but on the north side of it, you're getting, if I'm saying that right, you're getting 4 and 5 and 6 foot birds. You know, so it's the multipliers were put in for a reason. Take advantage of them.
Yeah.
And I know it's harder being in the city.
I think it'll be unfair if you giving a bunch of breaks that are 10 foot, maybe 12 to 15, and you're giving them a high quality score versus a team that actually you go to another flyer and that team is giving you 25, 30 foot with exceptional speed, just like the one you did right now, and you're going to give him the same as that. I mean, I think he deserves better score on the multiplier than that.
Well, you do, Jerry. I mean, when you're talking about depth, I mean, there's, I mean, a 10-foot bird would get a different, a different multiplier than a 30-foot for sure. And something Bruce said, I mean, something Bruce said really makes sense. A high velocity bird, you may not be watching for it. It catches your eye. It catches your eye. You know, a lot of, you know, you got 5 or 6 of those in a kit, they catch your eye, you know, when they're super fast, you know, and they're clean, you know, they don't. I mean, as a judge, you're part of what you're doing is standing there watching them to see if that happens, but they usually stand out. You know, they're not the really good ones. They just really stand out. I mean, a good kid, you know, a good kid, with good depth and velocity is a hell of a lot easier to judge than those little short, you know, it's just a lot easier.
You start guesstimating when you're there short like that, you know.
Well, you know, was that 8? You know, feet, you know.
Yeah, but
and even if you make the finals with those short ones, you got to see those guys rolling 30, 40 feet in the finals. So, you know, don't let qualifying be good enough. Get in there and try and really beat those top guys.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to put some birds that separate to do that.
Yeah, you know, you got guys like Rick Shaney, many years in this hobby, and everybody that goes over there like, man, he's got some deep birds. I mean, you gotta, you know, keep your eye on. You can't fall asleep on people like that, man, because those are the guys that from one day from one competition to the other, they're gonna be surprising with a good score. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm aiming at, man. I want to be on top, man. So
he deserves props for that, because to get him deep without bumping or rolling down, there's a fine line between that.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. Because with depth and velocity does come, their problems do show up, right?
Yeah.
You know, you don't get that many with 10 feet. You know, you got to worry about them hitting and bumping or anything else. You know. Sure. But man, with depth and velocity, you can bring in some other problems, right?
Yeah. But you know, I mean, it's a work in progress for everybody, and I give props to everybody in this hobby, especially those that are competing, man, because you know it takes a lot of time of your day, time away from, you know, doing family things to be out there and figuring things out. So I'll give a round of applause to everybody in this hobby, man. But especially all those that are willing to go and judge. Like you, Bruce, you say you were on a layover 17 hours and you were okay with that. So
cancellation,
so that means that you got a little feel for a World Cup. So hey, you can put your name on the World Cup, man. I mean, you'll be a good judge to travel the world, man. So I'm just putting it out there. You know what I mean? You're retired.
Yeah.
What else, man? What else? You got it. You got this.
I am very mentally tough, because here's the thing: they delayed the flight several times, right? Then at 10:30, they says, at 10 o'clock, they say the flight's going to take off at 10:40. I'm looking out the window, man. This is at Bush Airport, and the rain is coming down sideways at 40 miles an hour. And I'm thinking, this won't be a Leonard Skinner moment for me. I'm not getting on that plane. So I was already thinking, man, the NBRC is gonna be pretty pissed at me, but I'm not getting on that plane.
Yeah.
And then they finally around 10:30, they finally canceled the flight, you know, but I wasn't getting on that.
No, but real talk, man. You know, this is your time right now. You know, you've been in the hobby for so long. You had your brother in the hobby, you know, and supporting it. And you know what? It's your time, man. Man, you're retired, man. Go out there and judge, man. Get that traveling, the miles on there, man. You know, put your name in the hat for the World Cup. You got my vote, man. Serious. You're a good judge. You're a good judge. You're really a good judge, and we need more guys like you to go out there. More guys like Ruben Solorio. You know, my hat goes off to you guys, man. You know, a lot of respect. You know, but
I appreciate it, Jerry.
I want to, you know, just, you know, thank you for being on the show. We're going to bring it to an end. And if there's any more questions for you, Ray.
No, I just want to thank Bruce for coming on. I mean, it was a joy to talk to you, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy you a beer at the convention. I'm not gonna get sick from the first bus ride. You and I are gonna hang out.
All right, sounds great.
Bruce,
looking forward to it.
Any word of advice, any special words you want to give out to whoever out there in the hobby? You know, we got a lot of new guys, old guys figuring it out. What do you got to say, man?
You know, the truth is, I was thinking about that. If you asked me that, and you go in so in depth with your some of your guests, and so what I've come to realize is it's just sometimes one person can tell you something that 20 people told you before, but it sinks in when that person tells you. So I'm just new guys. I'm going to tell you this, man. Learn as much as you can from the top guys. Learn as much as you can from the guys in the middle, and learn as much as you can from the knowledgeable guys. Because the knowledge, it doesn't matter where it comes from. You know, there's a lot of things you can apply that one guy tell you. Keep in mind your climates. You won't be able to pull off the same thing in this climate versus that climate. And look forward to getting rid of good birds, because once you're comfortable getting rid of good birds, unless your hat's not on right, that means you're bringing better ones in. You know what I mean? And every bird that leaves my loft, if I had a chance to fly, you know, we all end up with some late hatches and we need to cut numbers. But every one of those birds I fly out have proven out as a breeder for 3 or 4 years and decide I don't need it or want it anymore. They all have my name on them. My birds come with my name on them. You know, I'm not saying they're going to take you to 3 World Cup titles, but as far as it being a quality bird, don't be afraid to put your name on something, you know, and stand behind your product, you know, that's kind of what I would tell anyone new. Learn as much as you can from everybody, because your learning curve is so much longer. You know, a bird can fly for 2 years, and that may only actually equal 8 months of flying time. Yeah. So, you know, you got to do like Jerry Higgins used to say, you got to breed all good ones. Well, of course, that's very difficult to do, but you got to give it a shot. You got to give it a shot, because to go the route we had to go, you'd be at it for 25 years before you're in your 3rd generation of some great pigeons, you know? And you don't want to take that much time. What is it saying? 2 sayings I really like. The one from Kowalski, where he mentions you have to build your family quickly so that no overfly ruins your chances of breeding more birds. And then recently I read something online and said, this guy was saying something about bringing yearlings, you know. He says, your birds aren't going to live forever, and neither are you. I like that. I like that. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, he is right.
Hey, thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody that's watching, supporting the podcast, all these awesome, you know, messages that I get for what we're doing. Much love to you guys. I recently talked to Jimmy Sherwood, and man, that dude got knowledge too, man. So I'm trying to get it on here. Those of you that know him, reach out to them and say, hey man, you got to do it. You know what I mean? Help me out, you know, because sometimes it's hard to get some of these guys, you know, on here with the mad knowledge.
I'm
And
proud of you, man.
we need the
I'm
mad
proud of you.
knowledge, man. Hey, I appreciate you,
I'm
Bruce.
proud of
Thank
you.
you so much.
I'm proud of, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'm proud of you to entrench yourself in the way you have. It's just, because somebody's got to do the dirty work.
Yeah.
You're doing the dirty work.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you.
Well, I tell you what, man, it's a dirty work, but it's lots of fun. I enjoy it, man. And you know, and just the help from everybody, like you know, Ray helping out, and not only that, but like I said, those people that are coming on here, man, it's you can't do it without them either. You know, you guys are the ones with the knowledge that are sharing it, man. That's very, very important. You know what I mean? I'm just putting it together for everybody to listen to, but you know, we need everybody's participation, man. And I, like I said, I give thanks to everybody, man, all the viewers, everybody, man. Let's just keep on going forward, and till the next one.